This week on Macbreak Weekly, Andy, Renee, and Lori are here to talk about the Apple epic. It goes on and on. The first ruling from the judge late last night. We'll have the deets. Tim Cook, as he begins his 10th year at CEO of Apple, and a Lightroom bug that deletes your photos. How bad can that be? It's worse. All coming up next on Macbreak Weekly. Macbreak Weekly comes to you from Twit's LastPass Studios. Now, you're focused on security, but are your employees? LastPass can ensure they are by making access and authentication seamless, whether employees are working in the office or remotely. Visit lastpass.com/twit to learn more.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Macbreak Weekly, episode 728, recorded Tuesday, August 25th, 2020. Shake and bake and Rice-a-Roni. This episode of Macbreak Weekly is brought to you by Molecule. Molecule is reimagining the future of clean air, starting with the Air Purifier. It's not just an innovation on existing technology, but it's a scientific breakthrough in air purification. For 10% off your first air purifier order, visit molecule.com and enter the code MacBreak10. It's time for Macbreak Weekly, the show where we cover the latest Apple news, socially distanced in our little boxes. I have our hosts. I like the new shot, Renee Ritchie. Is this new camera
thank you.
A new look for you?
I finally did an Alex Lindsay and hooked up my Canon C500 Mark II to an ATEM Mini, and then routed that into my MacBook so that I could try to do a little bit of the heavy Lindsay lifting while he was gone.
It's so funny as time goes by, because we've been doing Skype interviews, Skype posts on our shows for 15 years. But it's funny as time goes by, as more and more people are stuck, how this is improving over time. And yours now looks like a motion picture. I mean, it looks
This is a 6K
gorgeous.
sensor being downsampled to 4K, being downsampled to 1080p, being
downsampled to 720p by the time it gets out to the viewers. But it looks good. I love the color mix. I always have liked blue and gold, the cool and the hot together. I've always liked that.
Yeah.
It's a really pretty good look.
Yeah.
And what are those?
This is a Canon C-Log 2.
Oh, man, it looks good. Do you run it through a LUT before you feed it to us?
Yeah, the default Canon C-Log 2 LUT I really liked. I used to use a custom LUT made by Crimson Engine and Mondo Bytes, but that was based on an ARRI LUT. And I just love the texture of it. But the new Canon C-Log 2 LUT is so good. I've just been using the built-in.
I don't know if it's frame rate or latency. And it's probably because you're passing it through filters, but there is a little bit of latency on it. And we should explain for people who don't watch Alex Lindsay on a regular basis, that these really good cameras can shoot in a form called S-Log, where there's a lot more information, but the raw output looks very washed out, desaturated. So you have to pass it through a color lookup table or LUT to make it look normal. So you're taking the S-Log output, passing it through a LUT, and sending it to us so it looks normal and as a result, you get a much better look because you have so much more information in the image. It's just beautiful.
10-bit from the camera. I'm sure it's 8-bit by the time it goes over Skype, but it starts out 10-bit in the camera, so it's getting a lot more data.
Yeah. And the bokeh is great. What are the two little round things behind you? Are those? I'm going to guess those are fans from a cooler. For a PC cooler
Those
system.
are actually old school Hollywood spotlights turned backwards
funny.
Because I like the way they look from the back more than the front.
They look great.
And then there's Yoda and baby Yoda and baby Groot on that side, and R2D2 and BB-8 on that side.
And then the thing that's the best that people are saying, wait a minute, he's so dark, is because I have very flat, intentionally so, TV studio lighting on me, but you are doing really nice movie style lighting, which has a lot of dynamic range, and it really looks fab.
I have a D120 with a softbox and a crate there, and then I have Quasar Science tubes there and back there.
And then there's Andy Anako with his Wayfair paper screen. And no, your picture is good too.
No. See, I'm glad we're talking about tech because I just I don't know if you noticed, but I switched my camera from a Logitech Brio to a Magnavox VHS Handycam for that warmer analog sort of feel.
It looks good. It's very realistic. I love it.
Yeah, and I don't want to make any promises, but again, possibly because of the really great backgrounds that everyone else is using, we might see like a suspension of the. I'm finally like at the point of like redoing the entire house where it's like now there's nothing left but to confront the office,
the room. You want tips?
It might be time. Well, yeah, because one of it really behind me. The office is like not every visitor to my house in the before times would get to see like the office, because that's a good room to choose to like close the door and I've got stuff in progress. I don't want people to see like how I work. But now it's like, you know what, if I'm installing shelves and I'm installing new power outlets and doing painting, I may as well
make it look
finally
good.
Make my own workspace do okay. But yeah, no, this is the time where all the money that I'm not spending on like commuter rail tickets to Boston, all the money I'm not spending on like dining out, it's like money that I could be saving, but it's like, you know what if we were to finally replace that like 10-year-old sectional sofa with something nice? And so I think that we're all just sort of like getting ready for that time when come out do, where it's like we can have guests over and they're going to be able to see like this new piece of artwork that I finally got bought and hung. It's
Also with us from the burning regions of Northern California, it is Lori Gill. How are you staying? Okay, there in the smoke-filled Sacramento. Yeah, it's bad, isn't it? We're really smoked out here.
Yeah. It's a lot. The sky is just red all the time.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Are there fires near you?
The closest, I think, is sort of on the Reno, Nevada borderline. Oh, no, that's not true. Actually, Vacaville is the closest fire, and that's pretty distant. 35 miles from us.
That was the first really bad one. And all of these were caused by unseasonable. Unseasonable. It's not even unseasonable. We never have lightning any season, but lightning storms a couple of weeks ago, and now there's in the forecast they were worried that we might have more lightning. And there were over 10,000 lightning strikes in the area, which many of them caused wildfires. In California, we're in an arid climate, and it doesn't rain except in the winter. It rains, generally November through maybe April, and then there's no rain at all for months. Everything gets very dry and tinder-like. And as the president has pointed out, we are so lazy, we just don't rake our forests enough. And as a result, lightning strikes are the worst thing that can happen. Stay safe, everybody. We got hurricanes in Texas, Florida. It's just Mother Nature seems a little miffed, a little peeved.
She's done with us.
She seems to be done with us.
It's worse than that. It's recognizing that Mother Nature is barely aware of our existence.
That's really the truth. Yes.
But it's like, this is why all the hippie 1970s, the planet needs us to save it, and the 80s kid thing is like, no, the planet doesn't care whether we're here or not.
Mother Nature says, hold my beer.
If that asteroid that missed us by several thousand miles were to strike us, the planet would be pretty okay. It would be us who would be wiped out.
It's funny. My dad is for a long-time paleontologist, an expert in marine marine ecosystems, undersea ecosystems, and my whole life, grew up with all of this stuff around us. And a couple of years ago, I said, I was reading some books on the sixth extinction, the uninhabitable Earth, on climate change. I said, Dad, what do you think of all this? He said, Earth will be just fine. Earth's not going to have a problem with this.
You remember Bloom County? They had that old comic strip with Opus the penguin, and this cockroach goes up to him and says, I'm indestructible. You can nuke me. You can poison me. You can destroy everything, and I'll still be here. And then Opus just looks at him and steps on him and then walks off.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's cockroaches as a global community as opposed to any individual cockroach. Actually, I think humans will survive. It's just what the conditions will be like for those who.
Unfortunately, we don't get to choose which humans will survive. It'll probably be like they'll probably be the bastards who like, I've got an underground bunker.
Yes, I have a strategic air command rocket launching silo.
And then our society will consist of entirely people who don't know how to boil an egg.
Meanwhile, back down here on Earth, the court has issued a preliminary ruling on the Epic battle. I'm just going to call it the Epic battle.
Previously on Epic versus
Apple. Do we need to recap it? I don't think I need to. I don't know if I need to recap it. I guess the general gist of it is the overall battle between many companies and Apple over App Store.
The TRO. It's worth telling people there was this whole TRO thing.
What's that?
Originally, Apple and Google just pulled Epic's Fortnite game, but then Epic came out and said that Apple was threatening the entire Unreal Engine and filed a temporary restraining order to try and prevent the Unreal Engine from being shut down. And we talked about that last week because Epic isn't just a game company. They make a gaming engine, and a lot of people from Microsoft to ILM to a bunch of other places use the Unreal Engine to make all of their games and virtual sets.
So you jumped way ahead. I was going to start at the beginning. Can I start at the beginning and then we'll get to the TRO? So from the beginning, the issue, and others have complained about this, remember Hey.com back at WWDC, Apple wants 30% of in-app purchases. And if you mention in-app purchases, or if you have in-app purchases, Apple has several requirements. One, you've got to offer them in the app. Two, you can't offer a better deal out of the app. You can't say, hey, get your Kindle books here. They're 30% less because we don't have to give Apple any of it. So these rules are fairly strict. They're fairly, I think, universally enforced. There are a few exceptions. For instance, Netflix because Apple says, well, you're streaming video, so you don't have to give us 30% of subscriptions. There are a few exceptions like that, but generally that's why for a long time the Kindle app didn't offer in-app purchases on iOS. It did on Android. It didn't, things like that. Along comes Epic Games, Fortnite, the most popular game over the last couple of years. It has made Tim Sweeney, the CEO of Fortnite, $7 billion last year. It's made it a $12 or $13 billion company. It's been a very successful game. It's a free game. It has in-app purchases for downloadable content like outfits and dance moves. They decided to play a little game with the way in-app purchases worked on iOS and Android. In effect, giving a discount if you didn't buy it through the store, eliminating Apple's 30%. Apple immediately yanked Fortnite. But then the next step, and that's the TRO we're talking about, Apple then also said, and by the way, and it's in the provisions, we talked about it last week, we're going to yank your developer certificate. The problem with that, it affects more than just Epic because it's the Unreal Engine, and a lot of people use the Unreal Engine. Dozens of games, including Infinity Blade, which is one of the best-known iPad games, but many, many games use the Unreal Engine. Not just on iOS, it's everywhere. And so if you're a game developer, it makes a lot of sense. Use the Unreal Engine. Makes your life easier. You don't have to write a gaming engine. You can take advantage of hardware features on multiple platforms. You can offer a game on multiple platforms. All you really have to do is design the game, put the underlying logic in, and you've got something gorgeous. But by yanking the developer certificate from Epic, Apple made it impossible for Epic to update the Unreal Engine so that games reliant on Unreal Engine themselves would not be able to get updated. And that is a severe problem. Epic went to the judge. Well, first of all, Epic sued in the Ninth Circuit Court of Northern California. Epic went to the judge at that time and said, Judge, we need injunctive relief. We want you to stop Apple now so that we can adjudicate this, so the trial can go on without harm to us. The judge ruled yesterday. U.S. District Judge Yvonne Gonzalez-Rogers split the baby. And I think for people who are concerned that the court wouldn't really understand the issues, this showed a very nuanced understanding of what's going on.
She was canny.
Yeah. So Gonzalez effectively said that Epic is acting strategically in this lawsuit. She recognized that Epic planned this and set it up, pulled the trigger, knowing that Apple would react this way. She said for that reason, she was going to not give injunctive relief on Fortnite. Fortnite is not in the App Store, and she would not order it so. However, she says by limiting Unreal Engine, Apple has, quote, Apple has chosen to act severely hurting third-party developers who use that platform. She wrote in her judgment, Epic Games and Apple are at liberty to litigate against each other, but their dispute should not create havoc to bystanders. So she did tell Apple, no, you cannot block the developer certificate. You cannot block them from updating Unreal Engine because that doesn't just hurt Epic Games. So it was a 50-50 judgment. Half to Apple, half to Epic. All right, sorry, I just wanted to
called it.
Go ahead.
She explicitly called the pulling of the Epic's developer license an overreach, so that shows you where the tone is going.
Yeah. So that's where we stand right now, and I would guess I would say you could argue both sides of this in both cases, but it did show at least a somewhat of an understanding of what the issues were on the part of Judge Rogers.
Yeah. There was an interesting thing, though. Like there were two.
Go ahead. What I'd like to do today, by the way, is everybody should talk before you start talking again. So once you've said something, now it's Renee's turn, and then I'll give Lori a chance.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting in two ways. One is that she was good at honing in on several points of the technical aspects of the case. For example, she really wanted to know if Epic had put this in for review and Apple had approved it, or if Apple, as Apple said, they snuck it in, and Epic said, no, we did not sneak it in. They absolutely reviewed it. And then a few developers, like Miguel Alcazar, a really well-known Xamarin developer, went through the notes and said, no, you lied to the judge. You did sneak that in. And on Apple's side, they were trying to conflate Epic's international company that owns the Epic Unreal Engine license and Epic calling it a shell company, a facade. And the judge is like, well, you haven't proven that. You're just saying that it's a facade, it's a shell company. So maybe the two of those should be separate. And I thought that was more than just her willingness to enforce one side of it and not enforce the other, was her willingness to get deep into those sorts of weeds and sort of figure out what, beyond what the companies were arguing, what was really happening here.
Lori, what do you think? Victory for Apple, victory for Epic?
Well, I think it's definitely a non-victory for both sides because this is going to be a while in the making. I think this was the right decision, though, which is, Epic. They went against the contract that they had with Apple, and the punishment for their crime is that the game that that committed that crime, Fortnite, is pulled from the App Store until they make that change. But at the same time, because Epic Games is such a large organization in terms of the things that they do for other developers, this is a great way for third-party developers to be able to continue to get the support that they need. I do think that it was overreaching on Apple's part to go that far. So having a judge come in, it's like two kids on a playground that are kind of pushing and shoving, and the teacher comes in and says, you're both acting like jerks. You both need to go sit in the corner. You have a timeout, So hopefully it sounds like the judge is doing a lot of really detailed research and not just, taking things at the surface, because there is a lot going on, especially when it comes to things like, what's in the code and what's not in the code. Like, asking those kinds of questions. What do you mean? What are you talking about?
She seemed to really understand it. And by the way, this is just a preliminary order. This is going to go on for some time. She said at the hearing that the case is not a slam dunk for either side, cautioned her temporary restraining order will not dictate the final outcome of the litigation. This is just while litigation goes on. She said a September 28th hearing on Epic's request for a preliminary injunction. So something's going to happen in a month. And then Apple, when she asked Apple and Epic, well, how long do you need to prepare this? Epic said 4 to 6 months. Apple said 10 months. So we're not going to see a trial for a year, I would guess. She did say Epic breached its agreements with Apple by trying to make money on Fortnite purchases while accessing Apple's platform for free, but did not breach any contracts related to Unreal Engine. And so she said it was punitive on Apple's part, in effect. So a little spanking for both sides. But this is going to go on for an awfully long time. And I think that's the reason for the injunction is she realizes this is going to be painful for Epic. Fine. Epic, you brought this on. But she doesn't see any reason for it to be painful for third parties. You agree, Andy?
Yeah, absolutely. And there are a lot of people on both sides that are trying to read into what she was saying. For instance, saying that, oh, well, that wasn't good news for Apple because she acknowledged that just because Epic just because Apple has enforced a rule that it said was in the developer guidelines forever doesn't mean that necessarily that's enforceable. And that's not what she said. She, exactly as you covered very, very well, she basically said, for the purpose of this, we don't want the winner of this battle to become the king or queen of a scorched battlefield.
Yeah.
There's no need to punish the entire Mac and iOS software market just because these two companies are having difficulty. So it really wasn't a win for anybody.
It would affect the Mac too, right? It's not just so that's really a side effect that goes well beyond this battle over iOS.
That was a bullet dodged. I was really, really concerned that I was surprised that Apple would have gone to that level of brinkmanship, because I'm sure they realized that here is all of the technology, here's all the software that people use that require use of these of this engine. It seemed like a way to try to get Epic to, well, they backed down once a couple years ago. Maybe if we hit them with a big hammer, they'll back down again.
If you're bored with this story, I'm sorry, because it's going on I'll try not to make every show about it, but it's
fight.
It's going to go on for a little while, and it raises
kind of like a soap opera.
Yeah, but it also, I think these are important issues, and it's not just Epic raising these questions, Renee. This is something that the U.S. government's looking into, the EU's looking into. The anti-competitive nature of the App Store is something I think that somewhat it is a monopoly, at least for people who use iPhones. It's something that needs to be addressed. Maybe policies need to be adjusted. Do you think Apple's even considering that, Renee?
So I just, for the sake of it, I'll point out that the Apple versus Samsung lawsuit was finished today. And we all know how long ago that's
really.
The final paperwork was filed today. Yeah, I forget, like 3,000 filings. So these things, and it was settled a while ago. So these things do drag on.
Oh my God.
I think there's a couple ways to look at it. Technically, Apple is fine under existing law. People may not want the iOS
law.
devices to be a console, but Ben Thompson pulled out Steve Jobs' original statement on it from 2007 before the App Store, where he makes it super clear that what they're building is a console. And that doesn't mean it should be a console. Like, you should argue against it being a console, but just from design, it was built that way. And all the consoles charge 30%. All of them have monopolies over their own devices. We license software. We don't own our software anymore. We license hardware. We don't own our hardware. I mean, BMW is charging subscriptions for seat heaters. We live in a truly bizarre age, and I think it's really important to fight against that. But Apple is doing what a console owner does. I think it's harder to accept when the console owner is that big and that important in our lives, and we have to litigate. I think we need to litigate it away from being a console into being more of a general purpose device. And I think there are consequences to that. Like, some people want alternate payment systems and they want alternate stores because they want the freedom to choose. And other people are like, no, I deliberately went iPhone instead of Android because I like the lack of confusion. I like the fact that I can trust what I download. I specifically chose it because it was a managed environment, and you're trying to take that away from me. And part of the reason people are willing to spend more money on iOS devices is because of the relationship that Apple has developed that has value. And I think we will have to sacrifice some of that trust, some of that value to get a broader App Store economy. But I think we should never just be very, what's the right word? It's not a good versus evil battle. It's not it's not a clear-cut battle. We're going to have to very carefully carve out what we want, and what we're willing to give up to get it, and make sort of like a new App Store deal for 2020.
There's also a larger issue with the App Store, which is it's become unmanageable. That there's not enough people Apple could hire to do a good job with the App Store.
They make mistakes, and they don't deliver on the promise of the App Store, and that's a separate, but I would argue much worse, much bigger issue.
Yeah, malware sneaking in. Recently, Zach Wood, who's a developer for something called Addicts, got kicked out of the App Store and the developer program, not for anything he did, but because his app had been copied many, many times by other people, third parties, and so Apple accused him of manipulative or misleading behavior. They couldn't figure out that he was the one injured. It wasn't him doing it. Fortunately, his appeal succeeded, but I think that this is demonstrative of the issue when you have thousands and thousands. How many, do we know how many apps a day are submitted to Apple? It's got to be a huge number. Laura, is there any number, any figure for that?
No, I've never heard anybody talk about how many apps are submitted each day, but yeah, it's got to be in the thousands or tens of thousands.
And do we know how many people Apple employs to review these, and what kind of training they get, and who they are, where they come from?
We don't have any of that information.
Right now.
Yeah, and we don't have any of that detail, but that's clearly where the choking point is. You know, when you hear developers talk about things that are wrong, it has to do with communication at that level. So, you know, what you're having issue with is reviewers, Apple's reviewers of apps, either getting it wrong or just not communicating quickly enough with the developers. They're overburdened. They're doing a lot, and so when a mistake happens from Apple's perspective, they just, oops, we made a mistake, we're fixing it, you're back to normal. But from the developer's perspective, that could be hundreds or thousands of dollars in revenue that they lost during that time period where things, went wrong. And depending on like how bad the error message is coming back to it, it could be detrimental to their reputation too. I can't remember who it was, but a few weeks ago, it was an app developer whose app was pulled. And when you tried to download the app, Andy, I think you were the one that pointed it out to us, you got a notification that said this app might be malicious. Yeah. So that like ruins the reputation of the developer, and Apple doesn't do anything to compensate for that. They just say, oops, and then turn it all back on, you know? So there's definitely a huge issue with there not being enough people. I don't think it's that they're not being trained well. I think it's just that there's not enough people to cover thousands and thousands of brand new app submittals and app updates that come through the App Store every day.
According to Statista, per month, it's about 39,500 mobile apps every month released. That's released. Doesn't mention how many are blocked.
So it's more than 50 to 100 a day.
Yeah.
Which is a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. So
per person. Each person is expected to do 50 to 100 a day.
That's, wow, you can't reasonably be expected to look. You're reviewing them for malware. You're reviewing them for failure to adhere to Apple's rules with the App Store. This is a lot to look at. And they don't get source code, right? They just get the binary. They've got to figure all of this out. I'm sure they have tools to do it, but this is definitely problematic. And then you get things like the WordPress thing, which Apple eventually apologized for. Andy,
yeah, exactly. They had a problem where the WordPress is it's kind of a weird app because it is an open source free platform for blogging. The app that they distribute is an open source free app for posting to your WordPress blog. And there was a big either A, misunderstanding, or B, a demonstration of the problems of the bureaucracy of the App Store, where suddenly they were the company that makes that app was told that, hey, we are not going to allow you to post any updates or bug fixes to this app unless you allow in-app purchases of your domain and web hosting product. And they said, well, what are you talking about? We don't have. This has nothing to do with this side business. There's a side business. There's also there's WordPress.org, which is the free stuff. There's WordPress.com, where if you don't have a web host, they will help you. They will provide you with web hosting. And they said, well, look, it doesn't make any sense for us. It doesn't make any sense for the users of this app to be given in-app purchases. And Apple essentially went back and said, well, tough. You're going to have to add this as an in-app purchase that you don't think you need, so that we can collect 30% of it. And went back and forth until what Apple this is the frustrating problem, I think, when Apple is dealing with App Store regulations. They said that because somewhere inside the app there was mention of, oh, by the way, if you need a domain, you can go to our website and go get it. So, oh, well, see, that violated the policy. And as soon as WordPress made its app comply with our policies, we were more than happy to restore them to the App Store. And this is, to me, this is the big problem that we're talking about. There are two problems here. One of them is that it's such a huge bureaucracy at that point, largely because of scale, but they can't simply say that that's that isn't a problem that Apple is capable of solving. But the problem is that they often come across like when the power company sends you a bill for $0.00. And so you don't pay it, and then they turn off your electricity, and they say, hey, why is my electricity turned off? I don't know any money. And then instead of saying, oh, you're right, we screwed up, we shouldn't have done that, here's your power back, and here's a credit for the time, they will say, well, I'm sorry, but we've opened a proper investigation into this. We sent you a bill for $0.00. You failed to pay that bill for $0.00. Therefore, we were absolutely correct in turning off your electricity. We are now closing your customer service case. And this is an example of that sort of thing happening.
I'm not sure why Apple apologized, although Sean Hollister's article in The Verge maybe is the best explanation. He says, let me find the last paragraph. He says, interestingly, no, that's not it. Oh gosh, where is it? He says basically this is a hill Apple decided not to die on. In other words, they just decided not worth fighting over this one. We got enough problems here as it is.
It's a bad look. Particularly right now, it's a very, very bad look to be beating up on an open source project.
Yeah.
I think Apple kind of almost made a mistake. Not a mistake, but
they implied they made a mistake. They did imply they made a mistake.
Well, no, I mean, just in general, right now, Tim Cook made this very strong statement that they treat all developers the same, and now we're seeing them trying to actually make good on that claim. But I don't think it has been quite as cut and dry in the past, and now we're seeing Apple saying things. I think WordPress is a perfect example of they needed to tell WordPress, we treat all Apple developers the same, so you owe us 30%. But it was a totally different situation. This wasn't even an issue of, giving a different, playing favorites or giving them a different deal. It's that they didn't even fit into that deal. So it almost seems like there's somebody behind sitting in an office going, okay, who doesn't pay us 30%? Let's go find out why they're not paying us so that we can claim to everybody that we're forcing these developers to we treat them all the same. We make them all pay 30%. So, it almost seems like they're they're trying to dig up the reality of that issue.
It's such a complicated story, and neither Epic nor Apple is helping by adding all this kind of ad hominem attacks and all of this stuff. I wish we could just kind of, I agree with you, Renee. Ben Thompson's article, Rethinking the App Store, is a very kind of measured look at it. He quotes Francisco Tomasky, who was on the original iPhone team. He tweeted a couple of days ago, Tomasky did, remember, Apple's iOS rules would not have allowed for the invention of the web browser. Let that sink in. They would have rejected one of the most important technical innovations in the history of computing. Microsoft's bully tactic of making IE free seems quaint in comparison. But here's the kicker. Think of all the other amazing ideas we don't know about because they haven't got a chance to be invented because they aren't allowed on mobile devices. You don't agree?
Yeah, I don't really agree with that because again, like if you go back, and he has Steve Jobs' quote in there as well, and it's an apt one, but you still can't develop on any of these devices. You're still developing on Windows for Android. You're still developing on Mac for iOS, and we've seen incredibly innovative, deeply world-changing apps be created. The entire gig economy, the entire logistical revolution come to life on mobile devices. And good
doesn't-
ideas on the desktop are going to filter.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to conflate the iPhone with the desktop. That's what Jobs was basically saying. He said, you don't want your phone to be like a PC. The last thing you want is to have loaded 3 apps in your phone, then you go to make a call and it doesn't work anymore. These are more like iPods than they are like
That was my
computers.
Trio, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but by the way, they're not really phones anymore. They're the primary computing
No,
devices.
it's changed.
Yeah, for the vast majority of people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is why this is the second reason why I think that this is an important lawsuit. I don't necessarily think that Epic is right. I don't necessarily think that it would be the best for Apple or the iOS community if any time that a developer wanted to create its own store, it was able to do so. What I do think is necessary at this time is for Apple to go to court to defend all of these policies, to really be made to held in public to say, you need to defend all of these actions. You need to prove not just to the court, but also to the court of public opinions that you haven't just simply been allowing things to slide because, hey, look, every WWDC, we get to say how many billions of dollars the App Store is generating for developers. It doesn't matter if a lot of smaller developers who don't have the ability to hire a dream team legal team, they'll simply have to deal with the fact that, oh, by the way, we pulled your entire app and we made a lot of your customers think that your app is malware without really any explanation. Well, you're going to have to address that. Apple has never been forced to explain itself, and during the process of discovery, just like we're going to learn a lot about Apple's internal policies, and Apple is not going to be able to defend a lot of the reasons why it's been doing what it's doing. Same reason why the Samsung lawsuit was, again, I think that the findings were correct in the very end, but at least as a bench warmer, as a member of the audience, and as a journalist, it was really, really cool to have Apple forced to produce documents explaining here's how we develop things and here's the arguments that we have. Sometimes it's not exactly the same thing, but during the process of discovery, Apple is going to have to not just simply go for PR, not just go for the bureaucratic responses of, well, we case closed, or you violated the rules and we have to apply the rules to everybody. I think this is ultimately going to be very, very good for Apple and for everybody.
Yes, Thompson in Stratechery points out that based on existing law and Supreme Court rulings, it's very unlikely Apple will lose in this epic battle. The company has a right to determine how they do business with third parties.
To be hyper-competitive.
Yeah, it can be hyper-competitive. It's not anti-competitive. But he does, and this, it's complicated, so I don't know if I want to go through what he proposes as new App Store rules.
Can I suggest something?
Yeah.
So I sort of am not on the same side as I think his remedy is an interesting one. People worry if there's alternate payment systems or alternate stores. Like, for example, Fortnite will no longer be on the App Store. Everyone will have to figure out which store, which app is on, have to make accounts for every service, and it destroys the simplicity.
It's kind of like the TV situation right now, the streaming TV situation, right?
But I think there's a simpler answer. I think that Apple should begrudgingly allow Gatekeeper on iOS, and I think that will solve myriad of problems because Epic will hate it because they want the shelf, the storefront of the App Store, but then they should pay for it. But if you give them side loading,
so
that's
Apple
notarized,
opens up side loading, but has the security features of Mac OS to protect you.
Yes.
That actually seems like a good solution. The way Android does it is not a good solution because basically it's just a setting. You turn it on, and then anything goes. There is no security around it. So you're talking about a halfway measure that seems actually quite sensible. I mean, it works on the Mac.
And it would create one other huge benefit, and that is if China says no more VPN apps or Trump says no more TikTok, that's fine. It gives Apple the same kind of deniability they get when they say, we don't have the data. They're like, we took it off the store, and they're like, well, people are sideloading it. We can't stop that, but we took it off the store.
You know what? I like your proposal, Renee. That's a very simple. Lori, you agree? Is a simple?
Will never find it.
It's a clean way to do it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Might be hard for Apple to implement.
This has been sort of the solution for quite a long time of just allow people to use, not just sideload, but Gatekeeper, which makes everybody happy. Everyone gets what they want out of it, or at least when they start making accusations that Apple doesn't do this or that for them, Apple can say, and the antitrust is a perfect thing, Apple can say anybody can do anything they want on their phone with any app It's just that if they do it in the App Store, here's the rules that they have to follow. So
would you do it maybe a little bit more stringently than you do on Mac OS? Because on Mac OS, there's really three choices. You say, I'm going to set it only App Store apps. I'm going to set it only signed apps, but they can be side-loaded. And then I'm going to have a third setting that says anything goes. Would you eliminate on iOS?
Third setting.
Eliminate that third setting so that you basically have two choices on iOS: App Store or signed apps.
I don't see why there's any reason not to allow me as the consumer to do whatever I want with the phone that I paid $1,000 for. So let me hit that switch that says anything goes. And if I break my phone, that's my fault. You know, like
that's what Apple doesn't want you to do. Yeah.
Well, it's not the breaking; it's like the like you increase the surface area for attack, because once you do that, it gives an amount of access that makes it more difficult for everyone else to stay secure.
I should point out that while we assume that the iPhone is more secure than Android, there is increasing evidence that is not the case. That Android is not really old Android for sure, but if you're using an up-to-date version of Android, you're probably as secure, and some argue even more secure than you would be on iOS. So you wouldn't necessarily be giving up the security of iOS to add this gatekeeper functionality.
No, it would be the same certification, same protection, and they've proven that it works on macOS.
Yeah.
But Laura, you think it should? You think I should have the ability to say it's my phone? If I want to install it from whatever, from a third-party app store, I should be able to do that.
I do think that. I think
in other words, turn on jailbreaking.
It's a consumer right kind of idea that if I again, if I paid $1,000 for my phone, I should be able to put whatever I want on it.
Yeah.
And I frankly think that the argument that it opens up like more issues of attack. Well, so does my Mac, but Apple didn't, put those restrictions on Mac. So if they're willing to do it on Mac, why aren't they willing to do it on iOS? I think that there isn't a really good reason, in my opinion, that Apple wouldn't allow something like Gatekeeper to exist on iOS.
And by the way, as long as you're doing this, let's put first-class support in for progressive web apps, so that there's a third way I can install stuff. I can install stuff from.
Can we agree no Electron? Like if we give you that, will you agree to no Electron?
I think if somebody wants Electron on their iPhone, they should be allowed.
Renee likes Electron about as much as I like cooked broccoli. It's like I can't even put it in my mouth. I hate it so much.
Why don't you like it? It's just heavy, right? It's heavyweight. It's too much.
So do you remember that error we had with all our Skype a while ago? That was Skype Render Helper. And the other day I had 3 of those. I had Slack Render Helper, Skype Render Helper, and Discord, I think, Render Helper. And it destroyed my, like, this is a 16-inch MacBook Pro. I can render 8K raw video with no problem. And these 3 stupid Chrome Render Helpers just brought it to its knees.
Right.
Yeah. And also there's a good argument. Okay,
go ahead, Andy. Go ahead, finish.
Thank you. There's also a good argument that they're not efficient, and they discourage companies from saying, well, we're going to make a Windows app that absolutely takes advantage of everything that's unique to Windows. We're going to make a Mac app that takes advantage of everything that's unique to Mac. It helps all these companies be able to create a feature complete release across all platforms on the same day of release. But yeah, I mean, if it were a choice between having the Electron app and not having it at all, I would much rather have the app. But yeah, I would much rather have a native Mac app for everything that I use.
Go ahead, Laurie.
These are ways that we can then force developers to, be accountable for what they don't do well. When we start just saying, so if I have, all these Chrome helpers that are just bogging down my Mac and destroying my Mac, I'm going to start shouting from a mountaintop how much I hate Chrome and how it needs to be fixed. But by not allowing it on iPhone, let's say, not allowing these kinds of apps, we then get mad at Apple for not even letting us have it, instead of really forcing the developers to take responsibility for their shitty apps, or for their bad apps and for fixing them.
Yeah.
I kind of like because you have to make native apps.
I kind of like the idea of acknowledging the iPhone as a computing platform. It's not an appliance.
Yeah. I just really don't think it even has to go as far as that. I'm totally with Lori that if you spend $1,000 for a phone, it's your phone. And if you decide that the way to get the most value out of your phone is to make it slightly less secure, that's totally up to you.
Yeah.
As long as it doesn't do it, as long as it doesn't do it in such a way that you can make a botnet that brings down the entire internet.
That's really acknowledging that the times have changed since Steve Jobs said that the iPhone is more an iPod than it is a general computing device. Nowadays, it is probably the primarily computing device. One of the reasons I was excited about
Xbox.
Yeah, maybe. One of the reasons I was excited about the Microsoft Duo, that book-shaped two-screen phone, is it acknowledges that this really, and they even say it's not a phone. But no phone anymore is really primarily a phone. It's a camera. It's a productivity device. It's a communicator for sure. And acknowledging that.
Someone calls you get upset.
Yeah, I don't want any phone calls. It's really true, actually. I hit the hang-up button fast.
Yeah, you're bothering me.
Stop bothering me.
You realize I'm trying to farm here?
I got farming to do. Let's take a little break.
This is a bigger discussion. It's like everything we get now is licensed. Windows is licensed. The DVDs we buy are licensed. The stuff we stream is licensed. The Switch we own is licensed. The stuff we've allowed a lot of technology companies to turn our world into a licensed and not owned world. And I think it's good that we start calling that back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's take a little bit. This is actually the better, much more interesting conversation than Epic versus Apple. It really is about the deeper philosophical underpinnings of what this device is and what would be the best way to go forward with it. And I hope Apple will start looking at that. The mistake Apple would make is, and I understand why they would make that mistake, is just to say, well, it's 53% of our revenue. So we're fine, thank you. We're just going to keep doing what we're doing.
We're fond of the status quo, shall we?
Yeah, we kind of like it the way it is. And in that case, it's only going to be government intervention that's going to change it. And that's the last thing you or I or anybody should want.
Yes.
That's going to inevitably be a ill-fitting suit. Despite the fact that the court seemed to do the right thing, at least so far, with this Epic versus Apple battle. But I wish it would always be preferable if companies would say, look, we understand the platform, we understand our audience, and we're going to maybe not do what's in the best business interest immediately for us, but do what's in the best interest of our customers and our users, believing that in the long run, that's the best thing for us to do. Apple's always paid lip service to that, but let's see them do it. And Apple, we figured it out. We figured it out. We got it, the answer.
Watch the show.
Watch the show. By the way, Tim Cook today starts his 10th year as CEO. Can you believe that?
I know.
Amazing.
Did he get his acrylic plaque like the others get? I hope so.
Signed by himself?
9 years ago Monday, Steve Jobs, August 24th, 2011, Steve Jobs stepped down as Apple CEO for the last time. Remember, he became so ill that he let Tim Cook take over briefly, then came back. Yeah. And then as he was sadly on death's door 6 weeks before his passing, he said, all right, Tim, you're in charge. Hard to believe that Steve passed away 10 years ago, a little more than 10 years ago. It's just very, very sad. And you know what? Good job, Steve, on picking your successor. I remember 12 years ago when Steve was sick, we said, oh, the CEO succession process is not ongoing at Apple. Steve just doesn't want to let go of the reins. He really needs to do a better job. Little did we know he was well on top of this.
This was like everybody knows that the fourth empty plinth in Trafalgar Square is reserved for a beautiful bronze memorial of Queen Elizabeth. There is always going to be denial because it is not in good taste to speak of a 90-someone-year-old woman's imminent death, and so this is what was going on. It's just a sign of how well Apple runs its company internally. That it's just such a tight team that you never really. It really is about growing your own talent inside, as opposed to here is this person that did a great job at this other company. Let's hire them for their expertise. It seems as though when they do that, it's a 2-year or 3-year hire before they move on to other things.
I never knew about the fourth empty plinth.
Yeah, it's really great because occasionally apparently it was for 100 years ago or something. It was for a statue that never got completed, and then it was just like no one bothered to do anything with it. And occasionally they do things like a few years ago they did a thing where they'd have, well, let's do regular like art installations there. There was a period in which they just said, well, everybody gets if you apply, we'll do like an entire summer where anybody who wants to can get 5 minutes to do whatever they want up there, whether it's an art piece or a speech. And now it's pretty much understood that
we
at
know
some
what it's
point
for.
there was and absolutely correct. It's like
she's the longest reigning monarch in British history.
I'm Canadian.
Yeah.
Generations of people who have never ever heard "God Save the King." Just think about that.
And honestly, while this is an interesting way to use the fourth empty plinth, can you show this? I don't think it's the.
Yeah.
It's exactly the long-term intent. It was going to be.
No, that was.
This was one of those temporary ones. I know. It was intended for an equestrian statue of William IV, but they ran out of funds.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's now empty, and this is another interesting idea. One of the other temporary ideas. It just really reinforces
if I had
how
the Unreal Engine.
Yeah,
I could put us on there.
yeah, we can be on there. This is really interesting. These are the various fourth plinth projects.
One of the figures I saw today was that Apple's market valuation went up as much in the last month as it did in all the time before Tim Cook became CEO.
Yeah. 2.1 trillion now. If you had Apple stock, congratulations.
It's funny money though, but it's like a YouTube subscription account. It's a total vanity metric, and it means
it
about
ain't
as
that
much.
funny if you cash it in.
Exactly.
Well, it's not real.
Well, because you think about all of the industries that are absolutely getting it right in the neck. Like live entertainment, theaters. There are a lot of. But one of the long-term effects of 2020 is going to be that all the independent venues that to this date have evaded being bought out by these national conglomerates that turn it into an exclusive venue for Ticketmaster or an exclusive venue for our roster of events and our roster of talent. They're going to be in financial distress. They're going to be bought up. And meanwhile, unfortunately, in a year in which we are actively asking questions about how much power huge tech companies have, this is an environment in which the services that technology provides, it's a boom year. So they're essentially becoming more and more wealthy and more powerful in a time when other industries are getting less powerful and less wealthy. So it's a bummer. It's a problem.
It's actually interesting because if you look at the tech sector, that's why the stock market is hot right now. If you take it out, it's not such a hot stock market. Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, and Google, those five are pretty much all of the gains in the S&P 500 over the last 6 months. John Louis Gasset,
user minutes.
Jean Louis Gasset had a very funny piece in his Monday note. Apple's best times are behind it, for real this time. But in fact, he's pointing out that many, including myself, I remember, and my dad will never let me forget the Thanksgiving 10 years ago when I said, "Steve's gone. It's time to sell your Apple stock." Sorry, Dad. That was when it was down here at the bottom of that big growth curve you see here. The good news is my father has never listened to me for financial advice, so he kept that stock and he reminds me every Thanksgiving.
What I've been doing, and I know it's a drop in the bucket, but every time I watch a movie on digital now, I've been donating the ticket price to the relief efforts for theater and
good for you. Good for you.
All that kind of stuff. Just because I watched Hamilton, and whatever the Hamilton tickets would have cost, I donated. And I think it's a small thing, but it's just
to Broadway, to movies,
to whatever it is. Yeah. So whatever fund is collecting.
Yeah.
And not to Hollywood stars, like there are organizations for actors that are just completely devastated by this. Yeah.
Yep.
As with all of the top 1%, they're doing just fine.
Yeah. They're good.
It's the normal people.
And the assistants, to all these people who aren't working right now and all that kind of stuff.
That's really good. We're doing a little bit of that as well.
I encourage that too. I've been watching the Met Opera has still been streaming another daily opera every single day. This is Verdi week, by the way. So all the operas you've heard of and all the arias that are like the opera's greatest hits are going to be streaming this week. And so I have been like there's some that have been so good that I've been capturing it so I can watch it later. But I've made like a big like bulk donation to a fund for Met Opera artists. And we're talking about the chorus, the supernumeraries, like the people who hold the spears, the people in the costume department, because they really are having a hard time. They've had no income for they are on unemployment. They've had no income, and they're not going to have any until at least January if the schedule holds. So for whatever live theater you personally have an emotional investment in. In addition, on the list of organizations that could use your financial support, think about adding that to your financial investment as well.
I missed Diana Damrau and Rigoletto.
No, it's still today. Today? You got until 6:30 p.m. today.
I'm going home early.
Superb. I already own that one on Blu-ray. Superb production.
I love Rigoletto. Oh, yeah. That and La Traviata, two of my favorites, both this week. And where do you see that? How do you get that?
You go to metopera.org, and right from the front page, there's a link to like the daily the daily stream. You can also take a look at what's going to be coming up for the next couple of weeks. They also provide background information, like information about the production, information about the opera, and they're committed to doing this forever. They've been streaming. They've been doing like live in HD theater streams forever, and also like on PBS they used to do like live streaming since like the 70s. So on some nights you can say, okay. Here is Luciano Pavarotti and Beverly Sills, like in 1978. Like, okay, I think I know what It's like saying, do you want to see what's on the baseball play of the night tonight? Mickey Mantle and Joe DiMaggio playing against the Red Sox of 1950 something. Okay, that sounds like something I would never have had a chance to see.
So is this Rigoletto in 1960s Las Vegas? This is hysterical.
Yes. This is why people don't I grew up with, it's always like people dressed in like 16th century, 17th century court dress and like florid like ballrooms, and they will always they keep doing things like figuring out, well, if we set this, let's give this an exciting new setting. They don't change a word of it, they don't change any of the songs or anything, but they put it into a new context and it becomes twice as exciting.
This is so hysterical. I can't wait to see this.
Yeah,
and I love the music. It's beautiful music. Oh, my God. And, of course, as with all operas, there's a woman sobbing on the ground as some guy sings Sweet Revenge.
Yeah. Again, the Marriage of Figaro is funny. It's a good
That's a
comedy.
good one. That's actually a good one for somebody who's not an opera fan as your first opera.
So
yeah.
I know we complain about sequelitis, but that's one.
That's a good sequel.
I'll put that up with Empire Strikes Back as one of the few sequels that actually improves on the original.
Thank you for joining us for this Andy Anako Opera Minute. We're going to take a little break.
And I've just monetized every opera purchase I made in 2020. Boom.
Actually, you can donate, and they do say that, pay for your tickets if you want. It's a free stream, but I think that's really good. I like that. Yeah, I'm going to do that. I never did watch The Mandalorian. Disney Plus got that money for nothing, so I can next time.
Leo, watch it.
I started it. It's like, Lisa said, this is a kid's movie. And I said, yeah.
All Star Wars is a kid's movie.
I know.
It's just, it gets good.
My problem was, Lisa was, but I was not a kid when it came out. And so I don't have that same appreciation of Star Wars that people who
But it's
grew
very
up
much
with
a Japanese samurai Western in outer space.
Yeah.
It's Lone Wolf and Cub.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It truly is. I mean, it's practically that story. So give it another try. It's going to be PG, but it's got a lot of great Japanese operatic storytelling style to it. So,
all right.
Yeah. Okay. And for Alex's sake, just watch it for the cinematography, because that's really impressive.
Well, the technology, now that I know how they shot it, is fascinating.
Yeah.
We won't judge you for not having seen it. We don't want to be that person who says, "You've never seen Apocalypse Now? Okay, well, forget our plans for tonight. You're staying here, and I'm going to make you see Apocalypse Now." Like,
I confess, I might be that guy in some cases.
Yeah, I think it, but after my 20s, I stopped doing it because, is that why no one comes to my house anymore? Gosh, it could be my personality, but I'm sure this doesn't help either.
Our show today brought to you by the fresh air in this studio. You know, it's funny, when I came in the studio, I said, it smells a little smoky in here. Not anymore. It smells great. Thank goodness we have our molecule in here. And at home, we have 2 molecules. A lot of us work in offices like this one where the windows are sealed. You can't open the windows. Probably okay nowadays with all that smoke in the air. But inside the office, indoor air can be 5 times worse than outdoor air. And that's not just me. That's the EPA that says that. That's why you want to have a molecule. It is reimagining the future of clean air. It's not just an innovation on existing technology. It's a scientific breakthrough in air purification called PECO. That's Molecule's core technology, PECO, photoelectrochemical oxidation. And what it does is very interesting. It has it's like a catalytic converter in my molecule, and it traps harmful pollutants in the air, very small pollutants that most filters can't capture, viruses, bacteria, mold, volatile organic compounds like formaldehyde. And instead of just collecting them, it traps them and then destroys them. Molecular air purifiers are designed to help protect homes, businesses, and medical spaces. So you know they're destroying pollutants and providing clean air. There are a variety of molecular air purifiers. We have the tall one. That's suitable for a room as big as ours, up to 600 square feet. For a smaller room, 250 square feet, kind of your bedroom or your living room, the Molecule Air Mini is a great choice. There's also the Mini Plus, which has a particle sensor and auto protect mode. That's really good because you may not smell the pollutants. You may not know that they're there, but the molecule does, and it will ramp up to take care of them, even if you don't know they're there. They even have an FDA cleared as a 501k Class 2 medical device, Molecule Air Pro RX. That's for medical offices, dental offices, specifically to destroy bacteria and viruses in the air. That's that PECO technology. It's really amazing. Healthcare settings and independent testing, the Molecule Air Purifier was shown to reduce MS2, which is a COVID-2 proxy virus. They obviously don't want to test it on the real virus, so they use this MS2. And it was able to reduce concentrations by over 99.9% in an hour. That's important for your health these days. And you can see the study right there on the Molecule website, and I highly recommend checking that out. It's an extra layer of protection for your spaces. Still want to obviously wash your hands and social distance, wear masks, but having that makes me feel a lot better. That's why we've got Molecules all over the house now. Molecules technology and filtration systems have been tested and verified by independent third-party labs for the whole home and beyond. Molecule now offers breakthrough PECO technology across a broad range of products, depending on your environment. Pick the unit that's best for your space. You can also create a discounted bundle at molecule.com to protect your entire home, office, medical, or dental practice or business against pollutants. I'll tell you what, Lisa won't sleep without the Molecule on. We know that, and I kind of agree with her, especially nowadays. For 10% off your first purifier order, visit Molecule. That's Molecule with a K, MOLEKULE.com. Enter the code MacBreak10 at checkout. You'll feel a lot better. I tell you, I do. No smoke in our air. Molecule.com. Enter the code MacBreak10 for 10% off your first order right now. MacBreak10. Thank you, Molecule, for keeping us safe in here. Apple has released the 6th version of the iOS 14 public beta. Every time one comes out, I think we're almost there. We're almost there. There are some changes. There's a, let's see, encrypted AP. I didn't even know you had AP. Do you have APFS on iOS? APS.
Yeah, it was on iOS first.
Oh,
no, it wasn't. Yeah, they did that thing where they rolled it out, then they rolled it back quickly to see if it caused any damage.
Oh,
and then they waited and they tested it, then they rolled it out to everybody.
Wow, that's right. I remember now. That just shows how well done it's because it's just transparent. That's the new file system.
Completely managed computing environment. Yeah. And this is different though. This is what I believe when you attach files, like when you use the Files app and you attach external volumes.
That's right.
You can now read encrypted APFS volumes.
So you could have on an iPad Pro, for instance, a USB encrypted, which you would want to on a portable device, encrypted APFS volume. Plug that in and it'll be able to read it in the Files app.
I mean, sometimes if it was important data that you would not ever want anyone else to steal, you want to encrypt it. If it's important data that you never want to lose, like your wedding pictures or kids' pictures, don't encrypt it.
Yes, that's a different kind of. That's a different kind of protection. Yeah, encryption is so that the.
It's my Dave Nanian, channeling Dave Nanian there for a second.
Yeah, you don't want the NSA to get it, or like that. Yeah. Let me see if I have it. No, I don't see it yet on my phone. But I presume it's
I just
coming.
downloaded and installed it.
Okay, so they
Oh, yours is a public beta, though. I think this is developer beta.
No, apparently this is, iOS 14 public beta 6. So that's today. Yeah, the private version came out last week. This is I'm on the public.
Okay, gotcha.
You're on the private or the developer.
The developer,
and I don't yet see it. The Control Center airplane mode indicator now reflects the current airplane mode status and settings. Don't know why it didn't. Control Center now indicates phone is using the microphone for calls placed over the cellular network and over Wi-Fi networks. These are little things. The new time picker gets rid of, look at this. No more scrolling wheel. It's how does that work?
Well, so they took away the scrolling wheel, and I think because they're going to be running iPad and iOS and iPhone apps on the Mac, and it would look weird and act weird. But that was one of the most delightful interactions on iOS devices. Yeah. And now they've sort of made it look like the scrolling wheel, but it's still not, and we know it's still not. So it's just like a half measure.
But I didn't like it where it was the clock where the hands are going like this. I couldn't ever get that to work very well. Is that on iOS? I feel like that was on iOS.
Give me back the reel-to-reel from the original podcast.
I like that.
Yep.
Skeuomorphism. So if you are doing the public beta, and by the way, I've been doing it on both iOS and iPadOS without any problems since I think beta 2. So that's
this one hurt me.
Did it?
Well, it messes up Instagram, which like for some people is not a problem at all.
Yes,
but Instagram is always wonky on the betas because they use a lot of their own. I used to think it was React Native, but I don't know what it is now. But I can. It's very hard to post stories from iOS 14 for me right now. I have to use an old phone.
Yep. iOS 14 privacy features. Getting better and better. This is a piece from Mac Rumors talking about, in aggregate, all the new features you can expect in iOS 14. We've mentioned before the recording light, the little green dot, letting you know that the camera, the microphone is recording. There is now password monitoring in Safari, including compromised password alerts. So if there's been a breach of a site, you will know. That's something that desktop browsers often do. It's nice to have that in Safari. A privacy report from Safari. App Store also will have privacy reports. That's not yet, I think, on the App Store, but it's coming. Each app page will provide a summary of the privacy practices of an app before you download it. Love that feature. That's the one they called like a nutritional label for apps. Yeah. App tracking controls. I really love what Apple's doing, honestly, about privacy.
Me too.
It's one of the things I feel like if I'm going to use TikTok, for instance, I'm going to use it on an iPhone, not an Android phone, because I think that we really know a lot more about what's going on.
Did you see yesterday it turned out that Zuckerberg was whispering about how dangerous TikTok was?
Yeah, what a surprise. He was whispering it to the president.
Yeah.
And you know how the president tends to be influenced by the people he talks to, and I think that's pretty much anti-competitive behavior. They can't buy it. They can't beat it. Well, there's one way to beat it. Talk to the president. Wow. Did you see the new Singapore Apple store? Now, we were going to be in Singapore in January. I'm so bummed that trip is off because I would love to see this. It's floating. It's a giant floating spheroid.
You know, Lori would hit it like a beach ball. She would just walk up to it and hit it.
She has to touch everything. She can't look at something without touching, and we know that.
It's true.
It's Apple Marina Bay Sands. It's the only Apple retail shop floating on water. It's actually their third one.
Legion of Doom.
That's wild.
Like one of those superhero
it's Epcot inspired.
It looks like Epcot, doesn't it? Look at that with the skyline behind it. That's
Apple
beautiful.
Store in my dumb little town. I want something fancy and cool.
The new Sacramento Apple Store is
Port of Montreal.
You know
have a
what?
whole port here. They can do it.
It should be a custom railroad car.
Yes. Oh, that'd be so cute.
This is beautiful. Look at it when the skyline is lit up. Oh, that's
Look at that.
Yeah.
Man, that just makes me sad because I was going to be there in January. I'm so sad.
Oh God.
We were going to spend 4 or 5 days in Singapore next year.
Yeah. I'm so pleased that Apple has stuck to remember when they first started opening Apple stores and they were mentioning about how certain ones are going to be like architecturally significant, and that seemed like it seemed as though they were going to be pleased enough to see if their stores are going to be still open 5 years from now, but they still just deliver it like year after year after year. Where yes, the mall stores, they're nice, but what can you do with a mall store? But every now and then, like when they open the Chicago store, they don't just say we're going to take our Cupertino design aesthetic and make and transplant to Chicago. No, they decide what makes sense in the Chicago skyline or the Chicago neighborhood, what makes sense for Singapore, what makes sense for all these different cities. It's always a treat whenever we see like a brand new piece of architecture coming out of Apple.
Final Cut Pro 10 has now been updated. In fact, a lot of updates from Apple. The iWork suite has also been updated. Let's start with Final Cut Pro. They say significant, this is the Apple press release, significant workflow improvements, particularly for social media. That's sad. It sounds kind of sad that people would be using Final Cut for social media, but of course they are. I guess YouTube is social media, Renee, right? That's the same, right? It's kind of.
Well, no, it's for Quibi. They don't want to say it, but it's for Quibi.
Quibi.
Katzenberg forced them to add support, and they're just saying it's social.
Automated tools for social media cropping. So you could have a vertical video, for instance. Oh, God, I don't know. It's really, this is...
Virtual Training has a great video up already because, of course, they do.
Smart cropping?
Yeah, so it'll, if you have, like 7 different scenes, it'll actually find the subject matter and crop to it. So if the subject is to the left or if the subject is to the right, it'll crop according to that subject. So
it is Quibi.
It's kind of a neat little.
Jeez. Significant performance improvements with the metal-based plugins for Red Raw. You'll be happy about this, Renee. Canon Cinema Raw Lite. 8K Red Raw video to ProRes 422 is up to 2 times faster on a Mac Pro, up to 3 times faster on a MacBook Pro. And for the first time, Final Cut Pro editors can play and edit 8K Canon Cinema Raw Lite. Are you going to be shooting everything in 8K now, Renee?
No, I haven't bought an R5 yet, and I'm very hesitant to. So unless and until the overheating issues get resolved.
Oh, that's a good point.
I'm admiring it from a distance.
Are you looking at the Sony A7S?
Yes, but I don't have any Sony Glass. And now I wasn't going to bring it up, but Marquez and Dave Mays both posted their first looks at the new Red affordable, quote unquote. It's like the Pro Display. It's 6K for 6K. It's very simple and easy to remember. The new, I'm blanking on the name of what it's called, but the new Red consumer camera, which looks fantastic too, and it has an RF mount and uses Canon batteries.
The Epic CF Dragon, parts. Is that it?
No, it's not the Epic Dragon. It's the brand new one, and I'm totally blanking. It's Marquez's latest video, but it's it looks like a box. It looks like either a Stormtrooper box, depending on the color, but it's a little square box that you plug everything into, and it's all consumer tech, nothing proprietary in the build out at all.
Man.
And it looks like it's got red color. It looks phenomenal, but you do have some trade-offs. It's only SRI out, SDI out. Sorry, it's no HDMI out, and a bunch of other things.
Is it an Ursa?
This year has been the year for cameras.
It has. It's been an amazing year.
But
we
so
knew
many good cameras.
We knew this was coming because they've been slowly, improving, and the price has been dropping. And I think it's really somewhat driven by YouTube and social media, by the new use of high quality. And credit to Marquez Brownlee, who really set a very high bar, and others have followed and realized that he's done very well. By saying we're going to make the best.
It's a much bigger market.
Yeah, it's a bigger market than anybody knew. People really care about the.
Yeah, the fact that
It's
Sony
the
would come
Komodo.
out with
It's the what?
It's the Komodo. The camera's called the
Komodo.
Red Komodo. Yeah.
Oh, it's a Dragon successor, the Komodo. I'm not buying them. Don't worry. We're still 720p and mighty proud of it.
Yeah. I've been so tempted, particularly after seeing and reading like what Renee's been talking about, building up like his own studio. That maybe I should upgrade my cameras to something more like red quality, and Renee and other people on YouTube have inspired me to say maybe I should start making videos. And unfortunately, like the first step you think is, I should get this camera, I should get this control deck, and really it comes down to perhaps you should start off by shooting with an iPhone. And once you've got 20 videos, then you consider
see if the content justifies the purchase of a $6,000 camera.
But it's very meaningful. The fact that Sony has come up with a blogging variant of their RX100 camera, and Canon is also just making not just cameras that have convenience features for bloggers, but things that they're willing to say, here are we know how you vlog, we know how you do things inside your house, we know how you do things when you walk and talk and you're at a resort or whatever, and we're making stuff exactly for you. A lot of us grew up with, and with this flip camera, you'll be able to take pictures of your friends and your family, and not miss those moments growing up. And now it really is to support your business as a Twitch, YouTube, and other video streamer. Fascinating.
Oh, here's a day at the beach with the Red Komodo test footage. See, I don't know.
God, saltwater sand. It's an expensive camera. Oh God.
It's just, if you want the red look, it used to cost you $60,000, and now it costs you $6,000. Is a big deal here.
Yeah.
Was that the Surf Museum at Santa Cruz? Is it
Santa Cruz?
Familiar.
Yeah, it does look familiar.
It looked familiar.
Yeah. It's Grommet Island Beach Park and Playground, and there is a puppy. Aww. So this is a particular look. I've seen this a lot. It's kind of almost a soft look, isn't it? It's a little softer. Is that part of the feel? You'd expect with 6K to be hard-edged, crisp.
Well, I mean, like Indie Mogul has some good test footage up as well, and it does give you I think it's 6K downsampled to 4K. But it depends what mode you're shooting in and what you set it to. But it's
probably I'm watching it at 1080p. I should probably turn up the volume. Oh, it doesn't matter. Nobody can see it anyway. We're at 720p. I'm mighty proud of it. Actually, we're some of our equipment's starting to fail, and we're thinking about what we want to do going forward. Mostly, what I want to do is not spend any money I don't have. So.
Right.
Blackmagic Pocket 4K, Pocket 6K, also excellent. They're not that expensive.
We may be downgrading, not upgrading.
God.
Yeah.
See, that's the one that made my index finger twitch on the mouse.
I know that price.
Saying, but we have that money. We could spend that money, and it's so cool to play with.
My precious.
Yes. And you make a good point, Andy, about making sure you put 20 or 30 videos on the board before you. But wouldn't having this kit inspire you to do more work?
And
lizard brain is saying,
is reviewing that new Sony vlogger camera. I don't know if that's up yet.
Nice.
On
the V20.
Yeah.
I forget what it's called.
Yeah. He's got it in his hands, and he's been doing some amazing things with it. So that's the one that kind of tempts me, because that's not expensive, relatively. And yeah. But I don't.
And it's a practical camera.
My problem is I lack the content to make it worth doing. So. Yeah.
Have they largely solved the problem of, it seems like most of the ones that are pocketable and affordable, the element heats up way too much in 4K if you try to shoot more than 5 or 10 minutes.
Right.
Is that still a problem, or have they?
I don't know.
Put a heat sink and a fan on them?
It is and it isn't. Like it was a mandated thing for a while because they wanted to avoid taxes. If you were a video camera, you had to pay more taxes, so they artificially limited it. Yeah. And then then some of the sensors were getting too hot. Now it's a huge debate over Canon because is the R5 really overheating, or is Canon artificially limiting it, or they were too lazy to do the math and actually check the temperature and just wanted to be safe and put a limit on it. But the Sony doesn't overheat, and it's doing 4K easily, and the Canon doesn't overheat in regular 4K. It overheats in downsampled 4K and in 8K.
Yes, Ant's review of the Sony ZV-1 came out yesterday.
Yeah.
twit.tv/HOT.
He's doing such great stuff.
Yeah. This is very intriguing, this camera for vloggers and so forth. We talked about
it. And it has a bokeh mode and bokeh off and bokeh on, and it has a product demo mode where it'll change focus really fast.
I love that.
So you can hold up your product shot.
Yeah, I love that.
Does it have a feature where it automatically mutes you if you say, "Hey guys"?
No. If only. So Apple has updated iMovie as well. With some new filters to give videos hand-drawn looks. This is for the iPhone and the iPad, not for Mac OS. They've got a comic mono, which I presume is a comic look with black and white, and ink. Sounds neat. There's also 25 new soundtracks. You always need to update those regularly because we get tired of the same things over and over. Action, chill, and sentimental soundtracks. They automatically adjust to match the length of your movie. It addresses an issue that can prevent the viewer from updating after duplicating a photo in the timeline, improves reliability of redo when editing a trailer, and performance and stability improvements. On the Mac, iMovie's added 5 new filters, the comic mono, but also an ink, but also comic vintage and comic sepia. And you can import movies from iOS projects. So that's kind of cool. Do people use? I feel like more people should be using iMovie, because it's free and it comes with iOS and Mac OS. We just kind of overlook it, and it's a darn fine product.
It also hides away distractions from storytelling, which I think is really important if you're just getting started in this thing. If you really need to start learning nonlinear editing and how to tell a story through video and audio and still pictures, you don't want to get distracted by, okay, well, how's my color grading and how's my After Effects and how am I going to incorporate my titles? I really think that people who start off trying to create something as impressive as what they're seeing in these big YouTube channels, they're doing themselves a disservice because it's 80% is just the simple when to cut on action, pre-plan your shots, make sure that you're close enough to the action and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Oh, and also if your mouth is dry and you've got a good microphone, don't get some water or don't go. Well, I've got the new Sony action cam.
Oh.
And I'm sorry, but I know you've worked really hard, but I had to turn you. I was just doing that this morning, where it's like, oh, this is such a great video, but I can't listen to this anymore. It's horrible.
Or the L and J cuts where they start one sentence before completing the other sentence, just because they're afraid of any dead air at all. Anyways, we could quibble all day.
And whatever you're doing, kids, don't do like Uncle Leo does and eat lunch during the show.
Don't worry, but I have a lot of speaking as someone who last posted something to YouTube 5 or 6 years ago, I have a lot of wisdom and advice and judgment to share with people who
I have learned in my many years of not posting to YouTube. I have really learned some important points I'd like to share with you. I'm just going to watch you guys, you kids, you Renee Richies. You go ahead. You have fun. Go have fun. I'm going to stay here in old media, the podcast.
Well, it was fun because I had a couple people say, you should really do much more sedate, much calmer thumbnails. There's no reason to try and get any attention with your thumbnails. And my response was, I could take down the coffee shop sign. I could move off from Main Street. I could put a new one behind the factory out in the outskirts of town. I'm not going to sell any coffee that way.
Your response was, bam, bam, wow.
Wow. You know what we haven't talked about? Next, let's talk about the Mac.
Oh, yeah.
Renee, it looks like the second public beta of Big Sur is out. I have still not done it. I've had bad experiences installing betas of Mac OS.
I've had bad experiences installing release versions of Mac OS.
Well, that too. But
I've got it running.
You're using it, Lori?
I've got it running on my MacBook Pro, and I have not had a single issue with it. Now,
so
again,
tempted.
I always say it doesn't matter that, this version of it is running great. The next version might destroy your computer. So if it's not your second computer, or if you're not partitioning or putting a separate volume, and don't do it. But now, since the public debate came out,
and aren't they saying do not do the separate volume thing? That's like a bad idea now.
That was in the developer beta 1 and 2, but they fixed it in developer beta 3.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah, and it was never a thing in the public beta. Okay. They had fixed it by the time that had happened. So it is now officially something you can separate a volume for. So it's been absolutely wonderful. I haven't seen any issues whatsoever. I've had no slowdowns or any issues with apps not working or anything like that. So it's pretty reliable and pretty solid right now.
I always figure by the second public beta, you probably any showstoppers are gone. So this is it. This is the second public beta. Sometimes. Okay.
No, there's always time for September surprise. I'm not committing myself, but I'm saying that I'm enthusiastic enough about the quality of Apple system software that I'm considering maybe upgrading from Mojave on this main work machine that I'm using right now.
Mojave? Holy cow! You're an old timer.
I know. At first
I don't know,
it was
Andy.
just. See, at first it was prudent, and then I've kind of forgot that this was running an old version of the OS. And today was actually the first time I tried to install something that said, "Oh, you're still running Mojave? Well, if you want, we can download for you the older version of this app." And I do feel confident that in terms of production Macs, I really don't want anything to do with a new Mac OS release until a couple months have passed and we find out what's broken from it, mostly because of Gatekeeper.
The previous version of Catalina was extremely painful. PDK, which is the plugin manager, kept taking over 100% of my CPU, and then it was something else. This latest version has been fine, fingers crossed. But Catalina, I think, has been a far rougher road than I expected over the last year.
So, Big Sur, is it more than just a cosmetic update? It's definitely a big cosmetic update. Are there features that I'm going to go, I really wish I had that? Probably not.
I mean, it's less features, but it's more the foundation for the future.
Right.
It's where they're going to be building the Apple Silicon Macs off of, and it's going to have all of the stuff in there.
Yeah.
But
I don't have
it's going to be less important if you don't run an Apple. Yeah.
I don't have Apple Silicon yet. I for sure, when I get my new Apple Silicon 13-inch MacBook Pro, will be running Big Sur on it.
But Memoji, Leo, you're going to finally have Memoji in messages.
No, I don't care about that. I don't care about that.
I love that it's the 13-inch MacBook Pro because that's the one I want it to be in too.
Me too.
I am on the same path. We are holding hands down Apple Silicon Row right now.
And we should point out we have no idea.
They're Thelma and Louise clasping your hands and gunning the gas pedal.
Jumping off the cliff together at last. Good. I'm glad you want that one too. I think that's the one I would buy today if it were available, for sure. I don't know if I want a new iMac. I think my iMac Pro is pretty good, but boy, I'd like a nice, powerful MacBook Pro. That would be nice, especially 13. You want a MacBook Air, don't you, Andy? I could tell. I could see it in your eyes.
It's this. I mean, this could be an hour-long topic for me. That I have been working out not for a blog post, not for an article. Like all the landscape of all the hardware that I feel as though I need for the office and how I want to distribute my money. And it comes down to I want a desktop that's really, really, really powerful, so I will not have a problem recording or streaming 4K or doing Photoshop editing. I want something that is going to help me be super portable, and that because Apple has pulled back a bit from the abyss and they seem to be interested in making MacBooks that I can use, that plus Apple Silicon is now making me edge towards definitely getting a MacBook Pro as opposed to last year thinking, let's think about it. But there's still the question of, do I necessarily want to get something that's a conventional notebook? Would I rather have a $1,000 like a really nice iPad Pro to do that, or who knows next year what happens with the Surface Duo? It's absolutely not something that I'm willing to buy for $1,400 this year. But if the technology matures, I have to say that the idea of a dual screen,
it's attractive, isn't it?
Productivity thing. There are a lot of again. If I can remember back to the time when I was actually commuting to places and flying and taking trains to places, that would be an almost ideal setup for your basic. I'm going to spend one night in New York and I'm going to be coming back the next day. I have to do a meeting or cover an event. I don't want to. I would like to board the train with just like a tiny bag with a change of socks and underwear and one computing device that can handle everything for 24 hours. Really, the Duo is almost an ideal device for that. So there's a lot to navigate. I'm excited about how 2 years ago it would have been, I'll have to buy one of these. Depending on the model, I'll have to buy one of these depending on the model. And now it really is. Here is a bucket full of money and a scoop. How many scoops do you want to put into each of the things that you need to get? And that's pretty exciting.
Yeah. Good news if you want to use virtualization on your new Silicon Mac. VMware Fusion 12 has come out. I presume when they say we support Big Sur, that means we will support Apple Silicon. I hope. I don't know.
Yep.
And it also supports eGPUs, which I think is really interesting. We have the original Mac Blackmagic eGPU. My son's using it because he's doing a lot of Final Cut editing. And it works pretty well. He's got a 16-inch Mac or 15-inch MacBook Pro with the eGPU, and that works pretty well for Final Cut. But I presume it would be smart to wait until Apple Silicon comes out before looking at an eGPU. Because what will an eGPU be with Apple Silicon? Will it be Apple GPU? It's not going to be NVIDIA. It's not going to be
the Afterburner
Radeon.
card.
Yeah, it's going to be something Apple.
It could be like the Afterburner card.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, like either they'll do a partnership with AMD where they make something like the special fabric connector that just creates this monstrous GPU that you can plug into, and Metal and the performance controller just dispatch appropriate tasks to that thing. But also, I would love it, and I don't want to get anyone's hopes up, but you have a modular Mac Pro that they built for very specific reasons, and it'd be great if they figured out a way to have an analog for that on mobile, so you could have a MacBook Pro 16-inch that had a reprogrammable ASIC on it.
Yeah.
That if you do a lot of Final Cut Pro, that could be your Afterburner accelerator. Like you could have an Afterburner MacBook Pro,
it'd be software,
or whatever the logic equivalent is, or well, hardware, because it would have the ASIC card, but then the ASIC card can be reprogrammed.
But it's programmable. Yeah, so it's reprogrammable. Yeah. I like the GPU because it was a dock. It was actually a kind of a nice thing for a laptop because it was a dock as well as an eGPU, so you could carry your laptop around. But when you sat down at your desk and plugged it in, now you had all those benefits. Plus a pretty. It wasn't small. You wouldn't want to travel with it. It was like carrying a fire starter with you or something. But it did. And it also wasn't the greatest GPU. That's why I'd be very interested in what Apple's going to do.
AMD's come so far.
Yeah.
Their next generation stuff is going to be RDNA. The big Navi is going to be, I think, really, really competitive. It's going to
have ray tracing and all that stuff. And
they don't have the budget that NVIDIA has, so they had to invest the money that they did have into being competitive with CPUs, and we saw that with Threadripper and Ryzen and all of that. And now they're putting that budget into GPUs. And Navi was really good, but Navi 2 is supposed to be really, really good.
So I'm really intrigued. The idea that the VMware Fusion will work with Apple Silicon and an eGPU. Might it be a way to play PC games on a Mac? Might it actually be fast enough to do that? Typically,
they're going to do it in silicon. Like they're going to put silicon accelerators. I believe they announced that they're going to specifically build the silicon to make Hypervisor run faster than it has any right to run.
Right.
Which will be interesting.
Which means you could. It'll be. That's why you wouldn't need Boot Camp, because the main reason you do Boot Camp is so you have native performance. You'd have near native or native performance in virtualization. Who needs Boot Camp? In fact, I presume VMware Fusion still works like this with a coherence mode. You could have your PC game running as just like it's a standalone app without leaving macOS at all.
They demoed that at WWDC. They had the apps just superimposed. They had Linux. They were using Linux, but it was superimposed with the rest of the desktop.
Oh man, could be gamer nirvana coming our way.
Graphics performance is one of the top few things I'm looking forward to for Apple Silicon. The ability to put it all on the same pile of sand is pretty exciting about how well Apple could tune this. Not for people who are necessarily interested in external GPUs, but I'm just talking about the basic core graphics acceleration that you get for free with every single Mac.
A couple of acquisitions Apple has made, one last year that we just learned about and one recently. This Spaces, I feel like we had them, the original Spaces on the new screensavers or something like it. Originally, the idea was it was a social network. They were funded by DreamWorks, so they also did location-based VR spaces in Southern California where you could play Terminator Salvation. That was in Orange County. Apparently, thanks to the pandemic, nobody wants to go in a blank box room with other people and run around like crazy. So they pivoted to what's the hot thing right now? Zoom-style spaces. I don't know how good that pivot was, but it did get Apple to buy them. We don't know what Apple plans to do because they don't tell anybody, but they seem to have acquired it. I doubt they're going to use the VR rooms, but I don't know. This is all part of Apple's continuing acquisitions to boost their AR, I think. And we found out that last year they acquired an Israeli company called Camera AI, and they developed cross-platform AR graphics, a cross-platform AR graphics application, Israeli company. So they bought it last year, but nobody knew. It was a secret. So they're clearly working on something having to do with AR.
I'm going to say they're just trying to really improve their Memoji game. That's what this whole thing is about.
Oh, my God. But you're right. It probably is. Probably is all about Memojis.
Well, they want to get Leo to use the new messages on Mac. They're going to have to up their Memoji.
Yeah, clearly. Clearly. Have we announced the new Apple radio stations last week?
Yeah, I think we talked
about that. All right. So we don't have to say anything about that. That's already happened.
Hits and country.
I will say I've been listening to Apple Radio or Apple Music a lot more now, just because they have 3 stations. It gave me some opportunities. So
do you like it?
Yeah, it's still not niche enough for me, but I did discover there's Uncle Snoop's radio, which is Snoop Dogg doing some throwback stuff from 80s and 90s, and that's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Boy. Apple TV Plus inks deal for an adaptation with Kiera Knightley called The Essex Serpent. It's a Sarah Perry novel I'm not familiar with. Kiera Knightley will also executive produce. Set in 1893, The Essex Serpent will follow the newly widowed Cora, played by Kiera Knightley. Recently released from an abusive marriage, she relocates from Victorian London to a small village in Aldwinter, intrigued by the superstition of a mythical creature known as the Essex Serpent. Book of the Year, according to the British Book Awards in 2016. I'm not familiar with it, but more Apple TV original content. I don't even know if... Yeah. Are they shooting it? Is it shot? Will they shoot? I don't know.
Who shot first?
Who shot first? We don't know.
That's a good way to get us into hour 4.
Yeah.
Don't you dare.
Don't also, stop. Yes.
They just announced that, famed writer and Mac app developer John August and Ryan Reynolds are doing a new show, I believe, for Netflix.
Oh, cool.
He makes Highland for the Mac, a really well-known script writing program.
Oh, neat. That Ryan Reynolds, he's got a lot of energy. He is not letting the pandemic slow him down. No,
Canadian.
Sorry.
I mean, come on, Leo.
There you go. I actually am not sure, but I think I got bit by the Lightroom iOS app update. I'm pretty sure I had pictures stored on my Lightroom on my iPad, I don't think I had any presets, but I'm pretty sure I had pictures. There's no pictures there now. So fortunately, they were not the only copies. But I hope that you had backups because Adobe offered an update to version 5.4, which wiped out all images and presets that were not synced to the cloud, and Adobe has said there is no way to get them back. So just a reminder that you should never store anything anywhere that you don't have backups of somewhere else, obviously. But the iPad is such a tempting device for users. And what I've been doing and most of my cameras will do this, but I've been doing with my Leica is there's a Leica Photos app on the iPad. You turn on the phone, it connects via Wi-Fi. You don't have to do any hard wiring, copies the raw image over. Right, it doesn't unfortunately copy it right to Lightroom, copies it to Photos, but then you can import it into Lightroom. But that's the good news. It's still in Photos, edited in Lightroom. It's a very easy workflow, very nice workflow. I think Lightroom might now take direct copies, which would be part of the problem. Anyway, don't update if you haven't. The next version, 5.4.1, prevents this from affecting additional customers, but does not fix the problem for those who got hit.
Yeah. It bears remembering that backup is not about, hey, I've got a second copy of this somewhere, or worse, it doesn't mean that, oh, I've got it in the cloud, it must be safe. It means that you have multiple copies in multiple locations on multiple media. So having your photos up on iCloud is fine, so long as you also have a copy that's saved locally and a copy on a piece of digital media that you've actually stored offsite. So yeah, that's heartbreaking when you start to think that. Again, I've sometimes gotten to the trap of just saving things to my Dropbox, forgetting that, well, again, Dropbox can screw up as not as easily or as profoundly as I can, but when they do screw up, that would be very bad.
Karsten wants us all. Maybe if I can log in, could I play this, Karsten? Maybe I'll just play it from the tweet. That would be safer. Karsten wants us all to know that if you search for on your Disney, if you're Disney Plus subscriber, if you search for, and of course you are because of the Mandalorian, which I have not watched, as I confessed. Search for the Mouseketeers at Walt Disney World. It's apparently digitized from an old VHS recording. It's a 1977 special, and they didn't even remove the advertising. So analog glitches and weird 70s commercials, including for Shake and Bake.
Shake and Bake. I will
now reveal. We had Shake and Bake chicken just yesterday, and it's just as good as it was in 1977.
Did you have Rice-a-Roni with it?
As a matter of fact, we did. How did you know?
Oh, because it's San Francisco treat. Those two ads are like back to back in my mind.
Yeah. We're living in the 70s. Total disclosure here. Lisa and her son had that. I refused to touch it. I made my own coconut curry chicken, thank you very much, on brown rice, neither of which they would eat. So, we worked it out. They shaked and baked. I curried coconut. Tim Cook has donated
Jason Snell was asking if they could put the Star Wars Christmas special up on Disney Plus in the exact same way.
Oh,
that would be so
captured
fun.
straight off of VHS.
Oh, I would subscribe to Disney Plus for that. I'm already subscribed, but I would seriously. You can't watch the Star Wars Christmas special, right? George Lucas prohibited that.
As far as I know,
it's not available. It's not available streaming anywhere, but I have my own copy of it.
Yeah, you have a copy.
I watch it every Christmas.
You
I watch
do?
It every Christmas.
It's out there, man. You can't stop Star Wars fandom. I'm trying to get. I have a when you're talking about like the despecialized editions of the original trilogy, it's like I was just watching a note about how 4K upscaling of the original trilogy is going on, and how well this is happening just from like fan productions where you can see it much better than the original production.
I think I might have watched that same. It was like a documentary about somebody who is working on it, right?
Right. They're doing it by saying we've got like multiple 35 millimeter prints, and by essentially doing the same techniques you would use when you're stacking images in Photoshop, essentially by stacking like 5 copies of these prints on top of each other, any scratches, anything that's missing from one frame in one print, that detail is going to be there in another print, and you're also removing all the grain. And it's like, oh my freaking God! So, like when I would give you $100 for each of these movies, but I'm sorry that I'm being forced to download it illegally, but oh well.
Unfortunately, it looks like the version on YouTube does not have the ads in it, because that would make it
be fun.
So much fun.
Tell me what to have for dinner tomorrow.
Yeah. So what was the story? Yeah, it would, right. I think it's going to be those hot dogs wrapped in bacon. What do they call those? Pigs in a blanket. So what was the story of this? This was live action shot with some Christmassy kind of feel to it.
It was.
Are Andy and I going to fight over who's going to tell the story?
Go ahead. I'll
No,
start.
you tell it.
I'll start. You pick it up. I'll say the funniest part of it is that it wasn't a Lucasfilm like sort of thing. They subcontracted Sid and Marty Krofft, the ones who make those really terrible like Saturday morning Lidsville cartoons to do it. So the production quality is like absolutely down to the basement. Yeah, and now I turn the podium over to my friend and colleague for the actual storyline, which is even more improbable.
So it's the story of Chewbacca's family.
Wait a minute, is that Art Carney
Grandpa.
of TV's The Honeymooners?
Yep. Yes.
Oh,
yes,
geez.
it is. And that's Grandpa right there, who is about to go into a virtual reality machine.
Yeah.
And frankly, it's a little bit risque when you think about what he's doing and what he's watching.
And that's really not quite a Wookiee. It's more like a Sid and Marty Krofft Wookiee.
Right, yeah.
And
so it's the story of Chewbacca's family waiting for him to come home for Life Day, and they get some Imperial soldiers coming in to harass them, and Chewie and Han are kind of on their own adventure trying to get him to his family in time. And it's just a bunch of like little things that appear. There's a lot of B. Arthur is in it, and it does this really
B. Arthur and Harvey
incredible.
And Harvey Korman are in it. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And
it's a hot mess, but I love watching it.
It's for you. It represents Christmas, right?
Also, okay. Can I just say that for me, it represents like the depression of Christmas, because I remember specifically, I was a little kid at the time, but I still remember clearly. Now remember that this is like at a time where you don't have Star Wars on video. You don't have access to it. This is like the first time I'm going to see anything new Star Wars in years. And I'm looking forward to it. And I remember specifically that my family had to go to some sort of like a family Christmas party or something, and I missed the entire damn thing. And I was so upset until I was in my 20s and I bought a copy at a Comic-Con. I realized that I really wasn't missing anything.
Nothing. In fact, it might have ruined your.
No, but it's a wonderful artifact, because they got the original costumes. So you see the original costume, like original Stormtrooper costumes, original like Imperial officer costumes, but it's in the middle of this really tacky like video production. You see Han Solo and Chewie like in their original costumes, but now they're in like a very cheap made-for-TV version of the Millennium Falcon cockpit. It's like made out of like plywood, and like it really is something.
Oh man.
This is also the first appearance of Boba Fett, because this came out before Return of the Jedi.
So Lucas had something to do with it, right?
He had something to do with it, but he wasn't. It was more like he just gave them the go-ahead to do it. He didn't
There's
direct
Maud.
it.
Maud is in it.
As the bartender at the cantina.
Yeah.
She does this great song at the end.
Oh, my God. Well, it's all on YouTube, so... And this is
Harvey Korman in drag and a really, really huge padded like dress with enormous like bosoms, and doing this Jewish sort of. And now here's how you would do it. It's like, oh goodness, this was not a high quality production. I don't think it was a high quality production at all. I suspect.
It is as cheesy as only 70s television could be. Yeah. All right. I don't know why we got onto that. Oh, because we were originally talking about Disney Plus, and no, I can't stop watching. I cannot stop.
Again, you can't look away.
Watching. You can't look away. It's just too good. All right. So watch the 1977 Musketeers special for the ads. You'll have to go somewhere else to watch the rest of it. When we come back, let's take a little break. When we come back, folks, I want to get your picks of the week, so prepare them. Whip them up. In fact, I shall kick off the picks of the week because I forgot to mention this earlier, but I am a big fan of the screensavers on the Apple TV. They're so great. The slow motion drone shots. Now they've got underwater shots. And for years I've been using Arial on the Macintosh. It actually is available on Windows as well. And Apple seems to have never stopped this guy from doing this. As a third-party developer wrote an app that would put those screensavers on your Mac. He just updated it to 2.0, and this is wonderful. John Coates created this, and then Guillaume Luel has done a version 2.0 for Mac users. So if you don't yet have the Arial screensaver, there's a lot more control, a lot more information. And the beauty part of it is it actually pulls the video from Apple's servers. So that's why I'm always amazed Apple doesn't block this. The update brings 20 new screensavers donated by a professional artist. So they're not even from Apple. And so there's two ways to get it. You could check it out on GitHub. Just search for AERIAL. Works with Mavericks and Later, although some features require Sierra or Later, and it's free. You can use it as a individual screensaver, or you can download a dedicated app, which will install. And I'll be sure to install that the minute I get home because it's my favorite screensaver on the Mac. Renee Ritchie, your pick of the week.
So I'm picking Final Cut Pro above and beyond this update because I want to just give it a little bit more attention. I don't think we've talked about it for a while. But I was an old school, I learned to edit on a video toaster, I think, and I was doing very traditional, even though it was computer editing. It was very traditional. And I remember we were doing a big show in New York City in 2013, and our editor had left, and we shot a 3-camera podcast with Luria Petrucci and myself and the other editors, and there was no one to edit it. And my boss at the time, Kevin, said, "Well, you know how to edit. You can do it." And I got on the phone with the editor, and he goes, "Oh, it's Final Cut Pro. That's easy. Just throw the clips in there, right click, and say make multicam edit, and then just go through and press the 1, 2, and 3 keys, and it'll do all the cuts for you." And it took him 5 minutes of explanation. It took me about 30 minutes of editing, and we had the video posted. And like Scotty from Star Trek, they thought it was a miracle worker. And it was just really that when Randy Ubelos rethought what a nearline editor should be for the modern times. I know it upsets so many people who were used to traditional Final Cut, who were used to Adobe Premiere, who were used to Avid, all of that stuff. It upset them, but everything from magnetic timeline to things like multi-cut were just they save so much time rendering while you're editing, background rendering, all of these things. And just like Adobe is adding GPU enhancements this year, and Final Cut has been doing it for years, and they have advantage in Apple's ecosystem. They can access all this stuff, but if you have Mac hardware, it is so fast. And I'm not talking about benchmark scores. I'm talking about time to completed work, which I think is the only real metric that matters. I can ingest footage and I can export a final video so fast. And this latest version, it does things like it has crossfading, which you don't have to do tediously clip by clip anymore. And it's using, like Lori said earlier, it's using machine learning to help pick where it centers footage. And it'll also let you mask things if you want to edit for, I do everything in 2:1 aspect ratio, not 16:9. And it was just a bit of a chore. And now it just handles that kind of stuff. So it is expensive in the modern era. The previous version of Final Cut Pro was $1,200. Adobe is mostly still a subscription. DaVinci Resolve, which is brilliant, is either free or pretty expensive, depending on which one you take. But for a few $100, Apple has been updating this for free every year, going on 10 years. And again, if you edit on a Mac, it is just such good, fast, clean, smart software with a really great array of features that let you produce really good videos really fast. I recommend it as a next step up once you've exhausted iMovie, because just so much carries over, which is the really nice thing about it.
And let me follow up for Renee's sake that if you took the 90-day free trial last time Final Cut Pro was updated, you can get a new 90-day free trial. So you can get another 90 days of it. So
that's cool.
So you can try it again for another 3 months if you want to give it a try.
Yeah. So has it overcome the hit it took when they went back to the drawing board? Is it back now to everything it was before that?
It's different. So like there are people who just want some people just really hate the magnetic timeline. And I would argue that if you put A-roll or voiceover in the magnetic timeline, it'll save you a ton of work and then just edit B-roll traditionally on top of the main timeline. But it's little things like that I think still grieve some people, or just they're used to or like After Effects is just something they need. And they figure if they have After Effects, they might as well use Premiere. And some people just love the way DaVinci does. But I would be hard pressed to find somebody who, it wasn't just, I'm used to the old version, I don't like the change. I think feature for feature, it's well beyond where it used to be now.
Good. Yeah, we that was the end of the line for us because it had a key feature taken out that we couldn't work without. And so we went to Windows and Adobe Premiere, and our editors are still using Windows 7 on Adobe Premiere, I think. And I feel bad for them, but we had to make that change. And unless Adobe Premiere suddenly takes out a feature we have to have, I don't see any reason to move again.
They're all good. They have content-aware fill for video now on Adobe. I mean, they're all just killing it these days. We
don't, truthfully, the editing on this show is not real editing, They take the show, they cut out anything that, like swear words. They put something at the beginning, slap something at the end, and push it out. It's not like we have anything fancy going on, so almost anything would do. It was the one feature we needed was the ability to use a storage area network, a SAN drive, and that was, at the time, we don't do it anymore, but that was the time how we did it.
They added a bunch of that. The funny thing is Daniel Pasco, because a lot of people have been complaining that R5 footage, because it uses an H.265 codec, it was just wrecking their Macs and wrecking their PCs. And Daniel Pasco posted it on the iPad using LumaFusion, just flying through it, which again is making me just cannot wait for Apple Silicon to be able to do things like that.
I love
it natively handles H.265.
Yeah, I love seeing up and comers say, "Hey, well, guess what? Hold my beer. Watch this."
Yes.
Good. I love that. Competition's the best.
Yes.
Andy, your pick of the week is in French. That's why I thought it was originally going to be Renee's.
I have been practicing this word because I know that I'm going to be pronouncing a French word in front of Renee. It's called fenêtre.
Very good. I thought that was
how close is the French word for windows? Am I good? So this is a really cool little utility. Fenêtre.
He said, that was close enough. Yeah.
The E has a little hat on it. So I had to suss that out.
Circumflex, yes.
It's a really cool, simple little menu bar utility where if you drag a URL into it, it will open that web page in a proper macOS floating window. So if you are, it's not something I need every single day, but there are a lot of times where I'm trying to follow like a procedure for here's the command line mojo in order to configure this on your Mac. And the thing is, I've got lots of tool windows open and the instructions need to be on the top at all times. There are times where I'm taking notes on like a long document that I'm reading online. And there's some times where there's a streaming site that doesn't offer picture-in-picture, and this will solve that problem very, very nicely. Now, the only things that I wish that it could do is that it doesn't. Google Docs doesn't work nicely with it. When you try to drag like a Google Docs window onto it, Google says, "Oh, this might not be a secure browser. I don't think I should let you run it inside this browser," which is a bummer because one of the things I was really hoping for is that so I could, if I'm working on a Google Doc or like a spreadsheet or something like that, I could have that on at the top window on my entire workspace while I'm doing other things. Bummer there, but it's still useful enough just as a way to keep a website window open on top of everything else that's worthwhile. Now, the documentation also says that it can do documents as well. I've never gotten that to work properly, which would be another bummer because it would be, I do like it. There's a free version. I liked it enough that I bought the $8 Pro version with a few extra like enhancements to it. But I would have been twice as eager to buy the Pro version if it will allow me to simply say, here is a BB Edit window, or here is a Microsoft Word window, or whatever. I want this is what I'm working on. I want this to never be covered up by any other window at any time. Where if I'm accidentally covering up something I need, I want the problem to be I need to move that other window, not I need to move the window that I'm typing in all the time. But as is, it's one of those simple utilities, does one thing, does it reasonably well, and there are a couple of other solutions that are kind of like it, but none of them work quite as well. So I dig it.
Is this? I didn't think that this was a problem. So, I mean, you can't just resize a window and leave it.
Well, that's the problem. As I'm tabbing between, like, again, imagine that I'm in the terminal. I'm also I'm trying to solve a problem with my hard drive, and I've got a terminal window open. I've got disk utilities open. I've got some other things open. As I keep tabbing from one place to another, the instructions keep getting covered up.
Yeah.
But now, yes, it's very correct that I could be arranging my windows so that nothing overlaps the other, but Mac OS doesn't make that very easy, and it's much easier for me to be able to simply have this thing in my menu bar at all times, so that in the odd occasions in which that's a very useful thing for me to have, I can simply drag that URL into the menu bar, and now suddenly it will never be covered up. I mean, the reason why I found this, as a matter of fact, was that I've been looking at basic tiling window interfaces for Mac OS.
Yes.
Because I think that if you have an enormous screen, or if you have like multiple screens, as I have now, having a tiled interface, or at least on one of those windows, is not a silly thing. I know that was the difference between Windows 1.0, like their first reaction to Mac OS was that you can overlap any windows. But the idea of being able to create a new window, saying I want to be able to use this other app, but I don't want to obscure the toolbars, what I'm doing in other places. I would like to not have to work so much on window management as I often have to do when I just simply create new windows and they keep overlapping each other. So I haven't found there's on Linux I have a window manager called IWM, which works very well. It is a learning curve involved, but once you get spun up on it, that's why I was looking for a solution like this on the Mac, because I was finding that when I'm using my full screen Linux install, there are things that I was enjoying in my workflow that I would like to be able to get in other operating systems. It's possible to get that windowing manager working in Mac, but I don't think it's really satisfactory. It's not something that I would recommend. So it got me looking for, give me alternative ways of putting up a window that will never be covered up.
Yeah, that's all the rage in the Linux world is i3 and IWM and these tiling managers, because they don't overlap. They're windows that tile rather than overlap, and so you have different things going on. You can use Magnet or something like that to simulate that, I guess, on a Mac. Yeah,
I've used a couple of those things where that duplicates to one extent or another Linux and Windows, where you drag a window to the edge of the screen and it automatically snaps to the edge and takes up half the screen. What I need is something that will could automatically say, actually, I don't want to. I don't want this to cover up the other thing I've snapped to half of the screen. The fact that I've already snapped something to the left half means that if I snap something else that's
snap to it. Yeah.
Now I want these to be the top half and the bottom half. Yeah. Not only that, but if I decide that I really want the top window to be 3/4 of the screen, I don't want to have. I want to be able to adjust both of those windows at the same time by dragging the bar that's between.
And
the
there's
two.
nothing like that on the Mac.
Nothing that, well, I should say nothing that I've found.
Not naturally, or not built in.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There will be, because it's so hot right now in the Linux world that I can't imagine somebody won't figure out how to do. Although in Linux, I always think of it as for command lines. I don't really think of it as for GUIs. Although I guess you could.
No, the number of times where I have to have an edit document open someplace, but I also have to have a PDF. What I'm writing requires a PDF and a web page that I'm opening at the same time. The number of times where I'm in Linux and I can just, again, there's a learning curve. It really is all about like keyboard
too. Yeah,
exactly. So it is frustrating as hell it is counterintuitive for the first few days, but if you stick with it, if you have a need for this and you stick with it, the number of times where I've been able to create like an environment where, again, I'm doing radio in the morning and I need to be able to assimilate lots of things at once. that's why Linux has been like one of my go-to desktops for that sort of thing. Because
so
it's just so easy to do.
That's the point of Fenetra, is that you can have a window open, but it doesn't obscure the windows beneath it. That it's
no. It is a Mac OS floating window, meaning that nothing will ever cover it. And you can have if you buy the $7.99 version, you can have multiple windows like that. I think that would be chaos. But
and it's only for video right now, right? You can't do anything.
It only works really well for URLs where you drag.
Oh, I see. So it could be any web page. Okay.
Any web page. Again, Google Docs doesn't work with it. The documentation says that it works with documents as well, but I can't like drag a BB Edit document into it. But it will try its best to open that document within a floating window. But apparently, it's not such a generic operation that BB Edit is not aware that wait, something's wrong. I can't draw into this window. But again, for a free app, it's very, very good, and I liked it. I was using it enough that I wanted to at least give the person some $8 to reward their efforts.
I am going to give it a try. I think that's a very interesting. Does some of this go away if you have multiple monitors?
Well, yeah. I mean, if you have,
that's why I have three monitors, so I can segregate stuff.
I think its biggest use is when you have one big monitor,
right?
Because the tendency is to keep opening windows and opening windows.
Right.
I have two monitors, and if I were a little bit more organized, I would definitely have. Well, this is my editing workspace monitor, and this other monitor is where I open web pages. Sometimes it just doesn't work out that way. And like I said, it's just nice to be able to say, all I want is for the next 20 minutes for this web page not to be covered up by anything else, and so I don't want to have to move anything around. I don't have to make adjustments. If I do one drag, it happens.
Yeah, I use to kind of handle this workspaces where I make everything full screen, and then I can use Control Arrow to go to a different full screen. But you can't have two things open at once. I mean, it's side by side. So, yeah, I think somebody should work on this. There's no reason why a Mac shouldn't have that capability. Until then, Fenêtre from the Mac App Store. Fenêtre, window. Ouvrez le fenêtre.
Not that I want to make work for our editors, but like if we all want to pause so that Renee could say the word properly, and then you just overdub that every single time one of the English speakers, Americans, tries to say it, I think that we would make a lot of friends across the border.
Renee,
they'll hate my Montreal accent.
Are you originally Francophone? No, because you're from South Africa.
South African.
So you speak whatever that language is.
Yeah, so I have the ch sound from South Africa and the r sound from French. So I got all the phonemes.
You got all the phonemes. He's got all the phonemes, man.
Fenêtre.
Fenêtre. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for me to break out my wallet for Lori Gill.
This time you might.
Uh-oh.
So, I'm sure that we've all heard about how Air Power has been canceled, or at least temporarily canceled. And there's a lot of companies that are trying to do their own version of it. And Nomad, which I know you all know that I love.
Nomad, yeah.
They are one of the first to market with their own free positioning charging pad.
It's what Air Power was supposed to be.
Yeah, and you know what? If Apple does make it, maybe they'll do a better job of it, but they didn't make it yet, and this is out, and it's gorgeous. It's thin. So I've got a real one right here that I can show you.
Yes.
So look at how thin this is. Yeah. This is the same thickness as their standard. It's big. The pad is big, but it holds 3 full-size phones on it. But it's really thin, which I think stands out amongst the few others that are out there now. They're usually kind of thick because they're layering the coils one on top of the other. And this does not use that. It uses a different coil matrix. It has 18 coils in it. And so the matrix it builds out so that it finds your device. So instead of you just hoping that you dropped it down on one of the 16 coils or whatever, it finds you. It travels its power to where your phone is and then picks up on that power. And I've done a lot to try to trick it or break it. And the only thing that I've noticed in this picture right here that you're looking at kind of shows you the edges of it. So the very edges, it's about, I would say, a half an inch on the side and maybe a quarter of an inch, or maybe a half an inch on the long edges and 3/4 of an inch on the side. that doesn't get power. So if you throw your phone that far off the edge of it, it won't connect to the power charging. But in any other circumstance, left, right, up, down, alongside, parallel, perpendicular, anytime, anyway, I've thrown it on there, tossed it on there, and it works every time. And it charges 3 different devices. So I have charged an iPhone 11 Pro, an iPhone 10s, and an iPhone SE2 all at the same time. It charges them equally at the equal speeds. It doesn't overdo it because there's too many phones or anything like that. So it's pretty impressive.
Quite a lot of engineering. Mm-hmm. You are paying for it. It's $229.
Yeah, you are paying for it. Yeah. And they're using a company called Era, and they're one of the new companies out there that are developing this free power, free positioning wireless charging. And each company is kind of doing their own version of it. And in this case, they're using one that instead of coils that are stacking on top of each other, they're using a matrix of coils that are finding your device. That it's like the thing is like moving around on the pad and finding your device.
It's interesting because they say that our software will improve over time.
Yeah, and they've already been. I talked with Ara about it a little bit, a couple days ago, and they have firmware updates that they're prepping to send out as soon as they get a couple of little things improved on it. Like when you place your phone on the pad right now, it takes a couple of seconds for it to get started. It's about 2 to 3 seconds. So you land it on the pad, and then you just kind of wait a second to see whether or not it charged, and it does every single time, but it takes that couple of seconds. So that's one of the things that they're going to push out in a firmware update. So you just be, plugging your Base Station Pro into your computer, downloading the firmware update, and then adding it to the pad itself. So it will get updates and continue to get better over time.
Interesting. Sounds like Era solved the problem Apple could not. And
I think the problem is this is not Qi certified, and I think Apple is probably trying to make a pad that is Qi certified. And I would argue maybe the Qi consortium, the wireless consortium, they probably need to make some changes to Qi certification in order to take advantage of the advancements in technology. Instead of forcing everybody backward, they should be jumping forward. Right. So that's probably part of why Apple couldn't hit the mark that they wanted, is that they can't get it Qi certified. So they're trying to fit within the Qi standards, and then they end up with things like overly hot coils that blow up the pad because they're trying to fit within that standard that Qi is requiring.
And it doesn't work with all Qi devices, although they say that's coming soon. And it does not work with the Apple Watch because the Apple Watch is not a Qi device. But they are working on a solution for that. It is a pre-order at this point. They say the second batch will be made end of September. So, but you can go to, it's funny because I like Nomad's leather. I have their watch band, but apparently they're doing electronics too.
Oh yeah, I have a half a dozen of their wireless charging pads. I love them. Yeah. They're all good. So
nice. Thank you, Lori Gill. You'll find Lori at imore.com, where she is managing editor and working hard all the time to get you the greatest Apple information. It's a really good site, imore.com. Thank you, Lori.
Thank
you. I almost called you Andy Gibb. Andy Gibb will be singing at
How deep is your love?
GBH in Boston. When are you next appearing on GBH?
I'm a day early this week, Thursday at 1 p.m. Go to wgbhnews.org, stream it live or stream it a little later.
Very nice. Renee Ritchie's YouTube channel is the eponymous Renee Ritchie, youtube.com/Renee Ritchie, ReneRitchie. He's also Renee Ritchie on Twitter. Thank you, Renee. You just, I should have mentioned, Lori, your review of the 27-inch iMac came out, right? On iMore. Not yet.
I am putting the finishing touches on it today. It'll be out today or tomorrow at the latest. I know it took me a long time.
And Renee's video review is up. Is it a review or a first look, Renee?
It's the embargo was like 24 hours. So I always try. I'm always like, if you're going to make a purchasing decision, if you're deciding to order it, I've got to give you the best information I can. But then I follow up like with a full review a week or two later.
And that's still to come?
Yes.
All right.
I'm trying to get some creatives on to help me because I dislike I don't use this thing, but I'm going to run a couple of bench things and just put up on the internet reviews.
Yeah.
So
yeah. No, that's good. I like it. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We do Macbreak Weekly on a Tuesday morning right after iOS Today. That's usually around between 11 and noon Pacific time on Tuesdays, which would be 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. East Coast time, which would be about 18 to 1900 UTC. The live stream goes 24/7, though, at twit.tv/live. There's audio and video sources there. Pick your favorite endpoint and watch along. If you're watching live, you should chat live at our chat room. That's irc.twit.tv. After the fact, on-demand versions of the show are available on our website, twit.tv, as with all our shows. In this case, it's twit.tv/mbw. Or on YouTube. We have a YouTube channel devoted to Macbreak Weekly. And, of course, you can always subscribe. In fact, I encourage you to subscribe in your favorite podcast application. That way you'll get it the minute it's available of a Tuesday afternoon. Thank you, everybody. Now, back to work because break time is over. Bye-bye.
Want more Twit? Well, check out Smart Tech Today. It's at twit.tv/STT. It's the show where Matthew Casanelli and I cover everything there is to know about smart tech. It's automation, it's connected devices, it's smart home, it's all those goodies and so much more. We get the news, we get the latest devices, we do reviews, everything. You got to check it out, twit.tv/STT for Smart Tech Today.